Hello and welcome to Economics with Ellie. In this video I'm going to cover some assignment 2 tips. If you haven't watched my first and second video on supply and demand, maybe start there. Alright, so what we've done already is the demand curve. The demand curve runs this way and the curve is called demand. Now what is interesting about the demand curve that I want you to see is if the price of something is 40, quantity on this graph that I've drawn is 2, where if the price goes down to 20, the quantity supplied will be around 4. So due to a change in price from 40 Rand to 20 Rand, the quantity has gone from 2 to 4. So this is a law of demand. If the price goes down from 40 to 20, the quantity will go up from 2 to 4. This makes sense because the cheaper something gets, the more people will be willing and able to buy it. Remember, for demand, you have to be willing and able. The supply curve goes in a positive and exactly opposite direction. This one is the supply curve. Now what supply means is if the price is high, more producers will be offering a product. Whereas if the price is very low, less producers will be supplying this product. The logical reasoning for this is that if they can sell a product, if they can supply the product at 50, they will probably be able to make a lot of profit. Whereas if they sell the product at 20, they won't be able to make so much profit. That is why at 50, 5 people are willing to supply the product. Whereas at 20, only 2 people are willing to supply the product. What's very important for assignment 2 is to note the changes along the curve due to a change in price, which is what I've just explained to you. So on the demand side, if the price goes down, the quantity goes up. If the price goes down, the quantity goes up. On the supply side, and this is also the law of supply, as the price goes up, more people are willing to offer. Let me make it the same as that one. If the price goes down, the quantity supplied will also go down. Whereas if the price goes up, more suppliers will offer it. Okay, this is because of a change in price. Okay, a change in price causes a change along the curve. That's price. All right. Then there's another change, another way that it can change, and that is if it changes not due to price, but due to, let's say, cost of production or due to more people in the market. Now I'm going to just erase this, clean it up a bit. All right, so what we've done is this is the demand curve and this is the supply curve. Where they meet is the equilibrium point. Okay, now demand, if price changes, the demand and the quantity changes. But demand can also change due to external factors. For example, if there are more people wanting a product, so if all of a sudden the weather changes and more people want something, or if there are, due to population growth, more people, or if for example, the substitute product becomes more expensive. So that is not a change in price, that is a change of overall demand. That kind of change takes the whole demand curve and moves it up. So the demand curve moves if it increases, if the demand increases for reasons other than just the price of the product, then the whole demand curve moves up. If the demand decreases for reasons other than price, so if the demand decreases because what would be reasons? There could be another product they rather want to buy, or it could be that market conditions change, or generally less people. So demand goes down. If demand goes down, it moves this way. Okay, so firstly what you need to understand is the demand curve. If the demand increases, it goes up. If the demand curve decreases, it goes down. Okay, now keep that in mind. I want to do exactly the same for the supply curve. If the entire supply curve moves, if supply goes up, then your whole supply curve moves up and you have a new supply curve. Ooh, no. I always make this mistake. Don't do what I just did. If supply goes up, it goes right. It goes right. So supply increases this way and it decreases this way. Okay, let me erase all of that and do it again to make sure that it's not too confusing. Okay, so we have our demand curve as always. We have our supply curve as always and our equilibrium point in the middle where the two meet. Okay, if supply increases for reasons other than price, if the whole supply curve moves out, supply increases this way and it decreases that way. Okay, so it moves out here. That's if supply goes up. And the whole supply curve moves that way, and that is if supply goes down. Okay, if you have supply and demand, this is always demand, this is always supply. And let's say this is a product like coffee. Now, if they tell you that the price of tea, let's assume that coffee and tea are substitute products. Okay, coffee and tea are substitute products. You can assume that if they are substitute products, a change in this one will affect that one and vice versa. So if the price of tea goes down, more people will be willing to buy tea. As soon as more people are willing to buy tea, the coffee demand changes. So just think of this logically. If the price of tea goes down, more people are going to swap from coffee to tea, so the demand for coffee will become less. Because if you're sitting in Mug and Bean, just less people order coffee because tea is so much cheaper. So the whole demand curve moves. If the demand curve moves, you can just logically look what happens next. So what will happen to price if the demand went down? The price was over there. The price is now over there. So the price went down. Okay, so let's just write it here. The price went down. The quantity originally was around here. The new quantity is over here. So what happens with quantity? The quantity goes down. Okay. There's one or two other things that I also need to cover for assignment 2. I've realized that some people are still struggling with formulas, so I'll do that for you. Okay, so we have QD equals QS. Okay, they speak about this as the equilibrium point where the demand equals supply. So that's on this curve where you have the demand and the supply, that point there where they are equal. Demand is equal to the supply. Then they'll tell you what the demand is. For example, they will say that the demand is 200 minus 10p. This is just an example. And they will say QS equals, for example, minus 40 plus 6p. Because that one equals that one, you can say this one is equal to this one. So let me write that for you nicely. You can say that 200 minus 10p equals this one, minus 40 plus 6p. Okay, so let me erase the unnecessary stuff. Okay, there is our equal to sign. Okay, this is like the bridge of terror, and it changes you as a person. If you go over the bridge of terror, you change. So on this side, we want all the p's, and on that side, we want all the normal numbers. Okay, so the minus 10p we're going to keep here because it's already on the right side of the equation. The plus 6p has to go over this bridge of terror, which means the sign will change. Okay, because the bridge of terror changes you. So the plus becomes a minus 6p equals, on this side we had minus 40. We want to take the 200 across the bridge of terror, so what has to happen? There's an imaginary plus sign there that will become a minus on this side, 200. Minus 10p minus 6p is minus 16p equals minus 240. I'm going to put the minus 240 on this side, which makes it positive. Put the 16p on that side, which makes it positive. Okay, this is the same as saying 16p equals 240, which is the same as p equals 240 divided by 16. And that you just work out on your calculator for the exam, and that will give you p. As soon as you know what p is, okay, remember, we're going back to the graph here. The p is always on this side. That's always a 0, that's always a q. We have demand and we have supply. What we've just worked out is the p, which automatically is the price. If they are asking you for quantity, you have to take that p that you just calculated and put it straight back into your equation. So if your equation was QD equals 100 minus 5p, here's the p. If they ask you for the equilibrium quantity, the quantity is equal to 100 minus 5 and whatever that p was that you just worked out. Okay, if the answer was 20, which by the way it's not, no, let's make it 10. If the answer was 10, it would equal 100 minus 50, which would equal a quantity of 50. Okay, so I hope that works for you and that you understand that. Talking about surplus. Price is always on this side, quantity is always on this side. This is always the demand curve. That's always the supply curve. And there's the equilibrium where the two meet. Okay, there's a question about surplus. So how I would like to answer that question for you is to say, in this market scenario, there is the equilibrium price. Okay, that is the price where demand equals supply. Over here on the demand curve, people were willing to pay a high price over here. Let's make this 10 and a low price over here of 2. Okay, so here we have demand. We're just going to look at demand now. On the demand curve, the quantity was quite low. As the price went down, the quantity was high. Okay, so the price changed the quantity demanded. But at the end of the day, the equilibrium price is the price. Okay, that is the price. So let's say this was a 6. On the demand curve, just the demand curve, there were some people, a low amount of people, but there were people willing to pay 10. But they didn't. They paid the equilibrium price of 6. Okay, so they were willing to pay 10. They scored because they only paid 6. And that is why this is a consumer surplus. Okay, this on the other hand is the supplier surplus. If you had to force a price on there, the triangle becomes smaller and the surplus becomes less. But that side is a consumer surplus, which means that the consumers are scoring because they're paying less than what they're really willing and able to pay. Okay, one more thing that we're going to do, and that's complements and substitutes. I'm trying to run through this quickly because I know it gets boring, but we have a whole assignment to cover, and that takes time. Okay, complements and supplements. Substitutes. All right, something like coffee and tea. Okay, so here we have a mug of coffee and a cup of tea. They are substitutes, which means you can change the one for the other one. Okay, you can change the one for the other one. That is a substitute. If they both cost 10 Rand, you'll obviously choose just your favorite, whichever you prefer, coffee or tea. But now if the price of tea goes down all the way to 2 Rand, even though you prefer coffee, you might decide to rather drink tea. A complement is things that go hand in hand. They go together. An example of this would be, let's say going to the movies. Okay, so let's say you go to Sterkiniko, and here is the popcorn at Sterkiniko. Okay, if the movie ticket here, if the price for a movie ticket goes down very, very, very low, more people will go to the movies, which means more people will probably buy popcorn, which means if they're complements, because they just go, they're like bacon and eggs, they just go together so nicely. If the price for a movie ticket goes down, more and more and more people will be going to the movies. So the queue at the popcorn will be more, which means the quantity for popcorn will go up. Okay, so on this side I've got complements, which means if the price of the one goes down, the quantity of the other one goes up. Here at the top for coffee and tea, I've got substitutes. Substitute says if the price of this one, no, what do we say? If the price of tea goes down, the quantity of the other one also goes down. Okay, so PQ, PQ. Okay, I've tried to cover the whole assignment in as short a space of time as possible. I hope this helps. If you're still not sure, leave a comment and I'll answer. Also have a look at all my other videos that I've posted. And good luck with handing in the assignment on time. Cheers.